Hi guys, so today I'm going to do a very short video. Yes, a short video where I just tell you how to do the summary analysis essay, which is also called the summary response essay. So let's jump right in. Okay, so the summary analysis essay has 4 parts. So keep that in mind as you write. First, you have an introduction, then you have a summary, then you have the analysis or the response, and then you have the conclusion. All 4 parts must be there. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through all 4 parts. I'm going to tell you what should be in each part. Then I'm going to give you my example, because I also did this activity in class. So I'll be looking at the results from my activity and I'll be demonstrating what yours could look like. I'm just giving you ideas to help you to stay on track and to stay focused. Okay, so the first part of the summary analysis essay is the introduction, which can be 1 or 2 paragraphs. Sometimes you could even have a third if you feel that you've written too much and the paragraphs look too long and you want to enhance readability. If you want to, that's fine. Now, in the introduction, there are a few things you're trying to achieve. You're trying to grab the reader's attention. You're trying to provide enough context. You're trying to explain why the activity was useful. And at the very end of your introduction, you're going to write your thesis statement. Sorry, guys. You're going to write your thesis statement, which will be your response to the activity, as in how you felt about that activity. And while you're doing all of this in the introduction, you're going to make sure to connect the activity to intercultural communication theory. So the introduction must have outside sources. Now, like any good introduction for any academic essay, your introduction should have a distinct 3 parts: the hook, the context, and the thesis statement. And to ensure that you stay on track, what you should do is not just start writing or typing in this case, but you want to separate the hook, and then you write some stuff, and then you decide on what you think the context is, and that's going to be a lot. And then below the thesis statement, you're going to decide on what your thesis statement is. I find it is better when you plan before you actually write. Now, you remember I did a video some time ago talking about how to plan for communication essays. This is really necessary. When you do it like this, where you highlight the difference on your paper and you show, what part is the hook, what part is the context, and what part is the thesis statement, you will be guaranteed greater success, because you will now know what it is you haven't done enough of, what you didn't do, what you missed. So before you start writing, typing, break it down so that you can have a better understanding and so that you can keep on track. Now, when you're going to write your hook, you have different strategies that you can use. You can tell a personal story. You can explain the history of the activity. You can tell why you found it interesting. You can explain what you expected the activity to achieve, even if it didn't. You can tell what you generally feel about the topic, and you can explain what most people believe. Now, I would say that the one that I chose was telling what I generally feel about the topic. So let me show you what I wrote for mine, which was called Second Language Walk in Their Shoes. I wrote, very often, native English language speakers do not get an opportunity to reflect on the possible plight of second language speakers as they navigate thinking in their language, speaking in another language, and hoping for effective communication. So this is what I feel. Now, the activity that we did was second language walk in their shoes. And I chose it because I know for a fact, because I look at my life and I know that had I not been exposed to learning about intercultural communication, I would never have thought about how difficult it must be for a second language speaker to keep up and to, process information and do everything in a jiffy and communicate effectively. So I chose a hook that told what I felt. You choose whatever hook works for you. Now, once we have the hook, the next thing we're going to look at is the context. For the context, I wrote native speakers tend to take efficient and effective communication for granted because they may not be aware of the processes involved in switching between two or more languages and the emotional and mental impact it may have on the second language speaker. This awareness is required, though, since we live and work in a multicultural environment, or we live and work in multicultural environments, and our co-workers will engage in identity management. Now, because I'm writing it in red, I've used my key term and I put it in black, but you would just do italics. All the key terms need to be put in italics. In identity management, we present the public persona that we believe is preferred. Now, you'll notice that my language is formal. And even though I'm telling you what I feel, it is very formal and it is not casual. I want you to get out of writing casually. Because when I marked the last set of papers, there was a lot of language that was too casual. Remember, this is formal writing. It's academic writing, okay? So, in identity management, we present the public persona that we believe is preferred, Alder 2012. Yet that identity is not managed as easily when co-workers are faced with barriers that affect their communication, which could cause their peers at work to regard them negatively. Very often, second language speakers are regarded as incompetent because of the miscommunication. Now, words like these I really should have put in bold because these are key terms. So anywhere that you have a key term, I want you to make sure to highlight it so that I can see. So like language barriers and self-concept, self-concept, stuff like that, you want to put it. You want those key terms to stand out. Anyway, I'm not going to read it all to you because while I'm talking, you can always stop the video and look at it. So first I give enough context and then I have two paragraphs. And then I say, with this in mind, the purpose of the intercultural activity, second language walk in their shoes, was to allow both speakers, first language speaker and second language speaker, to experience this activity from both sides, as speaker and as listener. As speakers, both parties were given an opportunity. Now, initially I had the word a chance, I crossed it out and I left it there to show you. But a chance is casual, that's how we speak. But it's a little bit more elevated when we say an opportunity. So when you're finished with writing, I want you to go back and look at your word choice and make sure that your language is a little bit elevated and as sophisticated as you can manage. So both parties were given an opportunity to experience the strenuous effort, blah, 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 blah. So you can actually see what I've written just by stopping the video and slowly going through. And you'll notice that words like decode, I have decode here, I have it in italics, but I should have put it in bold so you can see it. Psychological noise. And then I have this psychological noise, which was created from the lack of language understanding, created a barrier. This highlighted the need for empathy. Once again, a key term. So then I continue on. And at the end of it, I give my thesis statement, which is the second language walk in their shoes was therefore a beneficial activity as it allowed listeners and speakers an opportunity to experience the inevitable psychological stress that accompanies intercultural interactions, and it facilitated reflections on how to communicate more effectively. So that's my introduction. And as you can see, I had the hook, I did the context, and the context for me was an extended enough discussion. So I decided to go into a second paragraph, and then I have the thesis statement. Once I'm happy with what I have, I will go ahead, delete the context, the word context, delete the word hook, and then I have my introduction. But if you want to make sure that you hit all the information, that's what you need to do. Trust me, that is what you need to do. Now, once you have done your introduction, it's now time to do your summary. Because introduction, then summary. Now, the summary is going to allow you an opportunity to demonstrate your understanding. Summaries in general are documents that we do when we're trying to demonstrate our understanding of a reading. But in this case, it's not a reading, it is an intercultural activity. But it helps us to identify the main ideas. We don't want any fluff, we just want the main ideas. And remember, a summary must be objective. It must start with the author, the topic or title, and the main idea in the first sentence. Let me highlight that, in the first sentence. And then you develop the main idea in the sequence of the original. The sequence. It must be unified and it must be coherent. So for the summary, your first sentence is the biographical information and the thesis statement. Now, I got these activities from this book. So I'm going to write, in the intercultural activity, second language walk in their shoes, taken from the 52 activities for improving cross-cultural communication textbook, authors Stringer and Cassidy, I don't know if you can see their names, demonstrate how to foster deeper intercultural communication despite language barriers. That's what I think was the main idea, was their main idea. That's what I got from it. That was what I consider to be the main idea. How to foster intercultural communication, even when the person you're speaking to doesn't speak your first language and you have potential miscommunication. That's what I got from it. So that's what I think is the main idea. That's the first sentence. Now, then the rest of the paragraph, the summary paragraph, I'm going to give you the main ideas of what we did. And for me to do that, all I'm going to do is look back at the process that I had in my information sheet. Now, when I did that activity, remember, it was clearly set out. I had the title, I had the time required, and then I told you the process. Find someone in class who you're not friendly with. Tell them a 2-minute story, blah, blah, blah. That's what we did. So when I'm writing my summary, I am now going to tell you what we did. And of course, I'm going to write in the past tense. So I'm going to look back at the actual activity. And you guys have your video. If you don't remember, you can check your video or you can check what you wrote on your fact sheet. So now once I'm about to start writing the rest of the summary, I'm going to look back at the process and then I'm going to use a little bit more formal language again. So the first instruction was find someone in class who you're not friendly with. I would then write it something like this. To do this, and I'm saying to do this because I'm continuing from this sentence. In order to demonstrate this, my classmates were asked to find someone with whom they had spent little time communicating with. I know. So you want to use a passive voice more than the active voice. and you want to elevate the language a little bit, do your best. Just try to make it less casual. So one of the things you should not have in academic writing is something like this, contraction, your. So, and many of us do this because I do this when I write also in my first draft. And then when I reread, I take them all out. So you don't even have to wait to reread for contractions since I've told you. So make sure that all your writing doesn't have the contractions, okay? And then you continue. And that's the summary. When you're done, that's your summary. Now the next part is the summary or the analysis section. And this is where you're going to be now analyzing what you did. Now, unlike the summary, where you were just telling the main ideas and you weren't including outside sources, for the analysis or the response section, you must have outside sources, because this is not a discussion of only what you think. Yes, you will tell your response, but everything you say must be supported by outside sources. So the response section is usually subjective because it's your opinions, right? It's your interpretations, it's your opinions, your arguments, and it's personal. So you are allowed to use personal pronouns, I and we, which you would not be doing generally in academia. And of course, it has to be supported by outside sources. And for those of you who have forgotten how to use outside sources, I have a video. Please check it out. So the first question is, what do you think about the ideas in the intercultural activity? Do you agree or disagree? Why? So that's the first you're going to attack, right? And I put, this activity provided an excellent opportunity for my classmates to experience the inevitable psychological noise that accompanies intercultural interactions. Now you remember from Alder, psychological noise, there's a sender, there's a receiver, and then there is noise. So what I was saying is that you got a chance to feel and experience that noise. And then I talk a little bit more about it, and I talk about uncertainty and psychological noise, and then I explain a little bit more, and then I talk about hostility, because when it comes to uncertainty, that's his baby. And so I said, understanding the uncertainty that second language speakers experience, as explained by Hosted 1979, gave my classmates a chance to examine their own tolerance for people or groups with language and behaviors not similar to theirs. The potency, and initially I had the word realness, and then I thought, realness, no. And I just Googled thesaurus, and I put in realness, and it gave me a bunch of options, and I said potency. I prefer that word. And that's what you need to do with your language. Elevate it. Use the thesaurus. Quick Google, you'll get it, okay? And the next question is, how do the ideas relate to your own experience? Once again, it's personal, but you're using outside sources. So I said, this activity allowed opportunities for reflection. As a first language speaker who is not from the dominant culture in Canada, I see the value, and I went on and on and on. And of course, I went back to Hofstede again, where he said, what is different is dangerous. What is different is curious. And I quoted him, APA style. And you want to keep these little things here for a while because you're still planning, okay? Explain how the activity, blah, 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 blah. So, and then the third question is, how do the ideas relate to other things you've read? Textbook experience, whether you did 1104 or you've done intercultural reading, but you have to know in the response section, tell how the ideas connect. You have to now connect it to theory. And for my connection, I said, the onus is on the competent intercultural communicator to be strategic and intentional as they craft interpersonal and intercultural verbal messages at work. And then I talk a little bit about Alder again, blah, blah, blah. Yep, that's it. That is the summary analysis section. So, introduction, summary, analysis, and now we're ready for the conclusion. Now, for the conclusion, there are different strategies that you can use. I did another video where I looked at more serious conclusions, like making a prediction or doing a call for action. Those are possible. But for the summary analysis, if you want to go a little bit lighter, and that's okay, you could choose some of these. You could either finish with a personal story, or if you started a personal story in your introduction, you could end it now, or you could suggest the impact on your classmates, or you could suggest why the activity might get people interested in intercultural activities. You could tell how you were surprised by the activity. You could tell how the activity changed the way you thought or reinforced what you already thought. You could tell what you believe or what you think your classmates may have come away with and what they now believe. Choose one. There are tons from which to choose. So there you have it. Introduction, summary, response, and conclusion. And remember, you're using APA. Don't make it up. If you don't know how to do APA, there's a library, there's a learning center, there's good old Google, there's Purdue website. You have an abundance of resources. Don't make it up. Don't create, okay, I'm just going to put numbers and number it. We don't number APA. Or sometimes students just do random things and they don't put it in alphabetical order. It has to be in alphabetical order. So, or sometimes I've seen students underlining every line. No, don't make it up. So you're doing APA, and at the end of all of this, you're going to have your reference page. Now, guys, that's it. It's really that simple. If you follow this, you can't go wrong. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video or in class soon. Talk to you. Bye for now.